Okay, now, Dubs, we've been waiting to talk about this all show long. It's OKC versus the Celtics. We could spend most of the time on this game and briefly touch on the other NBA topics that we have, but not too long, because this is the meat of it right here.
Meat and potatoes.
OKC beat the Celtics. They held them to 27 points in the second half.
Jaylen Brown did not record a single stat line in the second half.
What did that
Finals
tell
MVP, by the
you
way.
about a
Crazy 'cause he killed in
potential
the first.
There's Ian.
series matchup? What does that tell you? This game, what did it tell you?
What did it tell me? Well, it tells me if Boston can't hit threes, it's kind of done and set and deal. They don't really have a counter for that. That sounds a little rude, but just based off that game alone, watching that game, the three ball's not falling. They struggle to find some ways to score. OKC's defense is legit. I feel like they cause a shit ton of turnovers. They're able to get all up in your face, deflections and whatnot. They cause a lot of havoc on the perimeter. SGA will be able to dog that matchup, I think. For the most part, he was missing some good shots, but I feel like he had an up and down game. First quarter, he was a dog. Second quarter, he struggled a little bit. Third, he was up and down. Then in the fourth, he really started to get it going. But I think SGA will pretty much be able to have his way. They was running a weird defensive scheme. Like, you don't see SGA run a lot of pick and rolls. He's not a big pick and roll guy. And he was doing that a lot. But I thought him and Isaiah Hartenstein, when they was running a pick and roll, it really moved the shit out of me because it felt like it was a 100% play every time. It was always a make. Hartenstein would get open, have the little float shot. Feels like he never misses that.
No.
I think for Boston, KP will be able to exploit that matchup. I think when they ran the two big lineup, that was really when they started to make their big run. I think it was KP and Luke Cornett when they was running that big lineup. OKC just doesn't have a real presence in the paint without Chet. And even if Chet is out there, I'm curious to see how they're going to play Chet and Hardenstein because they're very big on the 4-out, 1-in, or the 5-out lineup. Even Hardenstein shot a 3 in that game. So they're very invested into their offensive philosophy. So I'm interested to see how OKC integrates Chet and Hardenstein. But Boston, for me, felt like they were able to go on that run when they just went big, started to pack the paint. You saw Jaylen Brown get into the paint, and it just felt like OKC was a little bit too small for them, even when they were running out the Isaiah Joe lineups. But defensively, man, when OKC got their footing, when they came out in the second half, and they started to build up a scheme that was really perfect for them, they went on their run. And when, like I said before when we started the show, when OKC's defense gets it going, it feels like it makes their offense, it gives their offense an extra gear. Like they feed off that defense, then the offense can get it going, then they can start to get hot, and then you have SGA and stuff. I worry a little bit about the playmaking of this team, and offensively, can the offense stay consistent? Because you needed Boston to kind of fizzle out and be dreadful from the three-point line for you to get up. Because I feel like when they were in the first half, OKC just couldn't keep up offensively. So defensively, you got to be able to lock in. But I think this matchup is really sound. I do think Boston is still a little bit more talented, a little bit more higher in the IQ department from their starting five. I think they're more seasoned, they're more better vets. But OKC, they're young. They got a chance to fight. I just think Boston's too big, and that's the problem. Like, you really need Chet in this matchup because they're too big, they're too physical, and, they run about 6'4", 6'5" to about 7 feet, and all our guys are pretty gritty guys.
I understand the logic where you're coming from, Riv. It was a bad shooting night for the Boston Celtics, particularly in that second half, and we're not going to get that for a full series out of them. They're still the best three-point shooting team, the volume, the proficiency. They have the players to run out that 5 wide, especially when you have KP out on that field, out on that court, excuse me. I will say, though, in a series, I believe OKC can defend at a high level. Like this, I don't know, 27 points and a half. They just tapped in, they were locked in, and they locked down. I don't know if that can be consistently held over an entire series, but I do anticipate this OKC offense to get better. I want to shout out Wiggins, who has been playing some solid basketball over these last couple of games. He's picked up a little bit of a heater, 15 points in the fourth quarter versus the New York Knicks, had 15 against the Boston Celtics. He's just understanding his role. They need some solid floor spacing. He's shown that he can get to the cup a little bit. Doing well in that short roll situation. That was a very nice layer to his game that I like to see. Because, again, the concern for OKC, if there is one, would be their floor spacing around SGA and J-Dub. Now, when it comes to guarding the Boston Celtics on a consistent basis, I do believe you need Chet Holmgren in that series, no doubt. But Hartenstein, Riv, I've been saying this while Chet has been out. I think that Hartenstein's been their second best player.
I didn't think he was that good against Boston.
I don't disagree.
On
I just mean, and as a whole,
First half, definitely not.
understanding what he brings to you as a connector, what he brings for you, obviously as an anchor, while Chet has been out. His touch near the rim, you mentioned the floater. We joke about it, but it's the truth. I mean, he gets near that cup, he puts that floater up. I feel like it's going in every single time. And you mentioned the pick and roll with SGA, especially down the stretch of this game. They threw a lob to Isaiah Hartenstein. This is where I shift back to Boston. It's just so funny to me. Derek White is a legitimate he's a legitimate rim protector. It's kind of insane. He got yammed on this play pretty embarrassingly. But the fact that they put him in those situations shows how much they trust him. On almost 10 threes a game, he's shooting 39%. The Boston Celtics are so stacked. I still would lean Boston because they do have the experience. They do have the 5-out lineup that they can run. They still are one of the best defensive rosters. But the fact that OKC has shown on back-to-back nights where you're going up against, while you're trailing double-digit points to the New York Knicks, who are one of the best offenses, you go and you lock in that fourth quarter, you go and you outscore them, you're able to win that game at home. And then against the Boston Celtics, who still are the most respected team in basketball, you're still able to go out there and snatch a win from them in pretty convincing fashion in that second half. So I look at OKC, still respect them as a contender. They are the strongest threat to the Boston Celtics. I do believe it is a 6-7 game series, but this was a strong performance out of OKC without their best defender in Chet Holmgren. So it'd be interesting to see how they match up.
Dells, as a Celtics fan, after watching this game,
all episode.
God, you wish there was something else? What do you mean?
As a Celtics fan,
It is kind of wicked. You're 3 fingers deep in there.
Yeah, you keep going in there.
That was nuts.
As a Celtics fan watching this game, did you feel like OKC is going to be a legitimate challenge in the finals if you guys play them?
Absolutely. That's why preseason, the expectation for them was to make the finals. Championship or bust, whatever you want to call it. But my expectations for this OKC team was
Don't say it too loud.
You're the number 1 seed last year. You have a top 5 player. You have the MVP favorite. You have everything. I understand offensively the roster could be a little clunky, whatever. It's not perfect, but it's fucking great. It's top 3 roster in the NBA. That's why this team was so high preseason for everybody, us included. But the way they could lock in defensively, I mean, this has been an historically great defensive team all season long. To hold Boston in 27 points, listen, the shooting was bad for Boston. It was really ugly. I get it. We can get into some of the numbers, but I mean, regardless, still held them to 27 damn points and a half. You held Jaylen Brown to 0. I think it was Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Pritchard, and Hauser. Like those 4, maybe it was Drew instead of White, all had 0 points in the second half. It was really ugly because the first half, Boston was doing a lot what they wanted to. I felt like they got downhill a lot. They weren't taking as many threes. Thought they got to the rim. They scored 60 or so points. Like offensively in the first half, they were straight. Second half, just like OKC did against the Knicks the game before, 2 games before, just locked in that second half, came back down from double digits and had a big win. But yeah, I mean, I still think Denver gives the Celtics a tough shot just because of the Jokic factor, because they have no one to guard Jokic. But yeah, OKC's right up there with them in terms of toughest matchups coming out of the Western Conference. SGA is such a dog. And this was that without Chet. This was without Alex Caruso. But what really held back Boston this game was just the shooting. I mean, Derek White was 2 for 11. Drew Holiday didn't hit a 3. KP was 1 for 6. And it wasn't just like OKC was guarding at this insanely high level, forcing them into missed shots. On wide open threes, Boston was 3 for 20, 15%. On open threes, they were 5 of 19, 26%. On tight coverage threes, there's only 7 shots. They were 1 for 7, 14%. So out of the 46 threes they took, 39 of them were clean. They shot 20%. The biggest issue when you play Boston in a 7-game series is you could beat them. You just need probably 2 or 3 of these games. And in one of those games, you got to be really hot, or 2 of those games, you got to be really hot. And that's where I'll just take my odds. Where Boston has shown for 2 years at this point that they're going to take a shit ton of threes. Most nights, they're going to hit 35 to 40%. They're going to be one of the best defensive teams in the league. I think Joe Mazzulla, of course, still one of the best schematically. So it's just going to be tough to beat them in a 7-game series. But OKC, I mean, shit, this is why they're OKC. This is why they're looked at as the favorites coming out of the West. This is why SGA is looked at as the favorite as MVP. To do this without 2 of your most impactful role players on the defensive side and have probably the best half of basketball all season long, I mean, that's why they are who they are.
I feel like their defense, if they win the title, that's going to be the reason why. Of
course.
It's how menacing their defense is. They're disruptive. They don't have big body wings. They have a ton of 6'5" and under players like Jalen Williams, Alex Caruso are 6'5", but their perimeter defenders, they're so disruptive because they're so quick and they can get their hands lower to the ground, and that really disrupts dribbling lanes. Jaylen Brown really struggled once Lou Dort was put on him in the second half. Joe Mazzulla, after the game, he was asked what happened in the second half with Jaylen Brown, and Joe Mazzulla just said Lou Dort was on him. That they started putting Lou Dort on him. And in a matchup, how do you think a Lou Dort and Jaylen Brown matchup would go?
I think Lou Dort should have a good time.
I mean, I watched Lou Dort lock up Luka.
Yeah,
You think
he's one of the best defenders in the league?
I think he can hold Jaylen.
You think Lou Dort takes Jaylen Brown out of the series?
Out of a series? No.
Not out of a series.
He takes him 50% out the series.
He can do it. Like Jaylen Brown is not a player who's like screen. Now he wants all this work. He wants one-on-one work. So one-on-one against Lou Dort.
It's not a good matchup.
It's very tough to do every game, every series. So take him all the way out. No, because Jaylen Brown still plays defense, still can rebound the ball.
Offensively, I'm talking about.
It's gonna be tough. It'll definitely be tough.
Tatum had 15 potential assists. Do you know how many actual assists he had?
One
assist.
That's funny.
No, yeah, and I think that speaks to the process for the Celtics was correct.
For sure.
Jason Tatum was making some good plays.
Good looks.
They just couldn't hit threes, and I don't think that they're going to shoot that poorly in a series.
And even down the stretch in that fourth quarter, like the Thunder had like 2-3 possessions in a row, turnovers. Like Boston could have kept in it, but they were missing a lot.
I feel like the thing I'm missing with OKC right now is their defense is so elite, but I think offensively the minutes without SGA, that's where I come back to where. With him on the court, they're a plus 15. When he's off the court, they have one of the worst offensive ratings in the NBA. And how is that going to change? I think right now they need somebody that could play when he's not on the court and still keep the offense afloat. And right now, just from what I've seen, it just hasn't been that way.
I think that's what you hope Chet can do. It's just obviously we know what he brings defensively, but offensively just alleviate some of that pressure.
I just don't know if he's that kind of offensive talent.
He's not no, but he's going to be a lot helpful when you have a dude who's 7'2", and you have to work with J-Dub off of him. It's just more talent offensively than what you have now.
For me, I look at OKC and I think what they need more than anything is another ball handler. I think they need, especially when SGA goes to the bench. And I know that's supposed to be J-Dub, but then you have his inconsistencies on the offensive side too.
Zach LaVine.
I don't hate that at all.
Zach LaVine, I mean, another ball handler, bucket getter.
Zach LaVine has been an all-star level player this year.
They need like a Dennis Schroeder off the bench or something. Like somebody who could score, who can also
folded
defend.
Now going after him.
It's really J-Dub. He's not the greatest ball handler.
They need to develop. I
don't know if it's the ball handling. I just think that it's the inefficiency as a scorer.
Well,
inconsistency.
He likes to fade away a lot on his jumpers.
Yes, agreed.
You could definitely beat him to the spot. He doesn't get all the way to the rim. Ball handling is definitely good, like in stretches, but sometimes it's not enough to get past the defender. Like his creation is all that.
I think that his passing's good though. Like I think he's a genuine good decision maker, good passer.
I don't know because when he runs the second unit, it's.
But like in a pick and roll situation, he gets to the cup 9 out of 10 times. I see him make the right play.
Yeah.
Whether that's going up, whether that's dumping the ball off to Isaiah Hartenstein or Jalen Williams. Like you know what I mean? I've seen him make the right pass. Really often, it's just a matter of knowing when to attack, knowing when to get after yours, being efficient in that role too. Especially while Chet's out, we thought that we would see a tick up of his offensive game. It started that way, and then we haven't really seen it on a consistent level. I think that's what's been bothering the most, but I still trust OKC's offense. Like the fact that they're struggling offensively, where Alex Caruso, when he was healthy, wasn't hitting his jump shots. You have the inconsistencies out of J-Dub. Isaiah Joe's still a great three-point shooter, but obviously you can always ask a little bit more out of these role players. Lou Dort's not being an efficient three-point shooter.
They're still a 15-game win streak right now.
And they don't lose.
Outside of the Bucks, you count the game that didn't count.
But it counts. Win streak. It counts still to us. It counts.
So they're still on a win streak.
They don't lose. They're right. What are they projected? 70 wins right now? Something stupid.
Yeah.
This is the best defense in basketball. Like comfortably, I'm looking at the best defense with a really good offense.
It's just gonna be about how ready they are for the moment. Boston has already proved it. They've been in the moment multiple times. OKC's just been in the moment once. So you never know how those players are going to perform in those high-stake moments. We saw it. This was their first go-around, but Isaiah Joe didn't have the best series. Cason Wallace and Chet Holmgren from 3 wasn't all that. Jalen Williams has some quiet stats. So I think it's really about how they're going to come into this next postseason now that they have some experience. And if that experience is going to be enough to beat Boston, I think that's the big thing.
Let me also say last thing. Cason Wallace is such a great ball player, and I think he would be a benefit to all 30 teams in the NBA, what he can provide for you off the bench. And you can play him extended minutes too if you need to. Excellent on the perimeter, can shoot the basketball, can go downhill, in transitions, great as well. I mean, he really is such an amazing role player, and what he provides to you on the defensive side, especially on the perimeter. I mean, we might be looking at a baby Drew Holiday.